Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay. May I know where is Miss Nesamalar? Are you there? Now I can see myself.
Millie, I'm there as user. My account is as user.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So we can start now. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me say my greeting again. Yeah. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And welcome to a sharing session, which is also some kind of workshop for writing for English placement tests. Yeah, we are very honored today to have Miss Nesamalar, who is going to share her ideas about how you are going to express yourself in writing for task 1. Okay, so Miss Nesa, do you want to start now?
Yes, thank you. I will.
Okay, I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much to Madam Amelie for giving me this opportunity to do this workshop for all of you students. And I would also like to go on record and thank Madam Raja Munira for helping me with setting up all the things necessary to do this, such as the Zoom link and the YouTube link. Without her, this workshop would not be possible. So good afternoon to everyone who is already joined. I'm going to try and share my screen now. Once I share my screen, I will not be able to see any comments or questions that you might type in the chat. So you might need to wait for Madam Amelie to let me know, or wait till the end of my workshop to ask me any questions. So without wasting time, let us start. I'm going to try and share my screen now. All right, students. So this workshop is to give you some tips on how to prepare for task 1 of the writing paper for the English placement test, which will take place at the end of the semester around week 16. So you know by now that for writing, you need to do 2 things. Task 1, which is data analysis, and task 2, which is essay writing. So this workshop covers some tips, notes, information, and examples to prepare you for task 1. Before I start with showing the slides here, I want to acknowledge that the diagrams, examples, and some sentences were taken from various websites. Let us start with the very basic items first. So the terminology you need to know how to use for task 1 are these. So you need to understand the heading or the title of a chart that you will be given. The axis is for singular. Axis with an E is for plural. The key, I will show in examples later on what this means. And most important of all, at the beginning, you need to know whether a chart is static or dynamic. So let's look at the title. Social Media Users in Jamestown, 2008. So now we look at this chart. This one has no axis because pie charts do not have axis. Key are the colors here. Different colors show different age groups. Now, notice that in the title, it doesn't say different age groups. You are supposed to know. And this chart is static because there is only one pie chart. Title, comparison of energy production. There is no key showing what is for different colors, but you're given words and percentages outside each section of the pie charts. Now, these charts, pie charts, are dynamic because you have for 1995 and for 2005. They are two different pie charts, and one is for 1995, this one is for 2005. Same sectors, coal, gas, petrol, nuclear, and other. Same here, but what is different is the percentages. Important reminders, for bar and line charts, you need to look at the x-axis because that will tell you whether it is static or dynamic. Important reminder, is there a reference to the future? That means, for example, after the year 2022, that means there is a projection. When you have bar or line charts, look at the y-axis. Do not automatically assume everything is in percentages because it could be in thousands or even millions. Not always is it in percentages. Let's look at this. Enrollment on MP1, Music Technology 1. So this must be a course somewhere. You have a key. The x-axis gives you different countries. Look at the y-axis, number of foreign students enrolled. So this one is not in percentages, but giving you a number. Right, take a look at this. Let's see if any of you would like to try and tell me whether this is static or dynamic. Who would like to try?
Static.
Yes, this is static, thank you, because the x-axis has different countries and not years. Look at this. Fitness membership is the title. You have the key. Yellow is for women, blue is for men. X-axis shows you 5-year intervals from 1970 to 2000. Y-axis gives you in thousands. So let's take one example. The year 1970, you have 1,000 women who are members of this fitness center, and slightly over 2,000 men. Look at this bar chart. Is this static or dynamic?
Dynamic.
Yes, thank you. Because x-axis has different years in 5-year intervals. This bar chart title says percentage of population age 65 and over. So looking at the key, orange is for 1985, but look at blue, that's for 2035, but the year now is 2022. So in this case, it is a projection. That means this is a prediction of how the situation will be in the future in 2035. So the x-axis gives you different names of the places in Britain, England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and the United Kingdom. Y-axis is in percentages. This one, static or dynamic?
Dynamic.
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 All right, thank you, good. Now, when you're talking about the information in blue, do you use past tense or future tense?
Future.
Future. Why? Because it is for 2035. Remember, this is 2035, so you cannot say in England, the percentage of men in England in 2035, the percentage of population over 65 years old was about 23%. Was a simple past. So you need to say something like, in England, in 2035, the percentage of people aged 65 years old and over is estimated to be about 23%. Does anyone have any questions you want to ask me at this point?
No, madam.
All right, let's move on. You also need to be aware that sometimes bar charts could look like this. The numbers are on the x-axis and the key is on the y-axis. So don't get confused. So title, medical research funding in Sumland, but very importantly, look at this word, millions. Millions. So you have different kinds of diseases: AIDS, leprosy, tropical diseases, diarrhea, malaria, and TB. TB is short for tuberculosis. So look at this one. Let's take malaria. It has a nice clean number here. So in Sumland, people who suffered from malaria, was it 50 people or 50 million people?
50 million.
50 million.
And if you say 50 million, you might want to write this down. If you say 50 million, you do not say 50 millions when you put a number. You just say 50 million, right? So moving on. This is a line graph. Line graphs are always dynamic. Title, consumption of fast food by Australian teenagers. So you have different types of fast food here in the key. You have the years, 5-year intervals also. You have number of times eaten. So it's not number of people, but how many times the teenagers in Australia ate a certain type of fast food. Okay, let's see if you can tell me. Let's take a nice number that's clear to see. All right, now let's take the red line. It shows fish and chips. in 1975. All right, so 1975, fish and chips. Does it mean 100 Australian teenagers? I repeat, does it mean 100 Australian teenagers? Or secondly, that Australian teenagers ate fish and chips 100 times in 1975. Which one? Option 1, option 2.
Option 2.
Option 2.
All right, thank you. Thank you for participating. Right, so that's important to know. You need to know what the thing is that is shown on the chart. If a student writes 100 Australian teenagers ate fish and chips in 1975, that sentence is grammatically correct, but wrong because the information or the fact is wrong. So you need to know what the chart is showing you. Right, this is kind of complicated, so I'm not going to stop very long on this one. So title, the key, the name is given right next to the line. Why I put this chart is to show you that if you look at the x-axis, this also shows projections. So when you're going to write for 2025, 2030, do you use past tense or future tense?
Future tense.
Future tense. If you happen to mention for the year 2025 or 2030, then you have to use the future tense. Right. Any questions at the moment?
No.
No, madam.
Okay, thank you. So now the problem that many students have is that they don't know what points are relevant. They always ask, what should I mention? So what you should do is you choose things that stand out, that are clear when you look, because when you look at these diagrams, they are in picture form. You look at something that is high, low, it's at the top, or it's very low. If it looks similar, that's interesting too. Right? So, and then you can compare if it's very different or about nearly 2 times or half the time. Now, this one is very clearly the most. This is very clearly the least. For line graphs, you might choose the top. When there is a valley like this, the point at the tip here or at the top, and the lowest figure, you might choose where there are 2 things that have the same number. You might choose something that seems to stay stable, the same. So all these are interesting points that you can mention. After you have selected your points, you should choose, and then you need to organize your points ready for writing. Now, what do you need to mention, or what can you mention? For both static and dynamic charts, you can mention these: highest, lowest, something that is same. You can do some minor calculation. Like when you look here, this is about 180 billion, but here it's only about 25 million. So you can do 180 million minus 25 million. So you have about 155 million more AIDS cases than TB cases. So that you can do, so that means you're doing a different kind of sentence. You can do ratios, which means you divide or you times. So like this one, let's see, it's about 25. You say anything about 12.5? Yes, this is about, for 1985, it's about half of what is expected for 2035. Or the other way of saying it, for what is expected in 2035 is about double of what is in 1985. Right? So you can do ratios. Now, only for dynamic, you cannot do these for static charts. If you go and write increase, decrease, no change, fluctuation for a static chart, like this, right? So if you say, if you go and use increase from the point here to here, and then you say it decreased from here to here, that is wrong. And that is not accepted for a static chart. So be very careful. The most important thing is you need to realize or understand if a chart is static or dynamic. Do not use these words for static charts. Are there any questions?
No.
Right, very good. All of you sound pretty confident. Right. So now, another question that students usually ask me is, do you need to mention everything? No, you do not. You look at a chart, you do not need to mention every small thing that you see. You need to pick and choose. Now, when you're writing your task one, it is suggested this organization. The word limit is around 150 words. Introduction, conclusion, 2 to 3 sentences. Body paragraph of paragraphs can be 1 paragraph, but it would be better if you wrote 2 or more body paragraphs so that your points are not too squished together. Introduction. Now, when you write your introduction, you'll need to be direct, and it is highly recommended that you paraphrase the question. There should be a paraphrase of the question. Don't just simply copy and paste the task one question in your writing. It's not really wrong to do it, but it would be better if you can paraphrase. Then you give 1 sentence where you do a general description or overview. In the introduction and conclusion, you do not give numbers or percentages. When it mentions here overview, some of you have done the IELTS writing paper task 1 will know that there is 1 whole paragraph in IELTS where you have to write an overview. Here you only need to write about 1 sentence in the introduction. Any questions?
Not yet.
No? All right, let's move on.
No, madam.
All right, very good. Now, for the overview, you can write your second sentence of the introduction as the overview. How do you choose what to mention? That's a problem always, isn't it? What to choose, what to write. So look at the chart and then choose something. So you might choose something that is high. You might choose something that is low. You might choose something that has not changed. You might choose highest. You might choose lowest. Right? So these are possibilities for the overview. Now, let's look at this chart and use it as an example. Right? I'll give you a moment to look at this. We are going to use this. So here we have an example paragraph, right? Okay. Can I have a volunteer to read out the paragraph for me, please? Just read out for me. All right, thank you.
The given line graph depicts the Australian teenagers' habit of fast food consumption between 1975 and 2000. It can be seen from the graph that the popularity of hamburgers rose dramatically among the Australian teenagers, whereas the popularity of fish and chips gradually decreased.
Right, thank you. So the first sentence is like a paraphrase of what the question was given. So depicts, line graph is singular. So depicts, shows, portrays, and other words. Remember to use for the simple present tense, singular, with an S ending there. First sentence. So the first sentence mentions the graph and paraphrase the question. Second question is an overview. So popularity of hamburgers rose, popularity of fish and chips gradually decreased. Okay, hamburgers, green, yes, it rose. We can see that clearly. Fish and chips, yeah, some fluctuation there. It dropped, rose, but then dropped again till the end. So gradually decreased. Any questions here, people?
No.
Okay, sounds very confident, everybody. Right. So body paragraphs, like I mentioned, better to have more than one. You can use compare and or contrast. You can use comparatives and superlatives, and you can use proportions. Right, so let's look at some compare and contrast sentences. Can someone help me by reading out the sentences, please? Can I have a volunteer?
Me, madam.
All right, thank you.
Organization, compare and or contrast. Nevertheless,
This one, can you see what I'm showing?
yeah.
Nevertheless, the demand.
The demand for pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read out
May I
for,
read?
yeah, nevertheless, the demand for pizza.
Nevertheless, the demand for pizza was constant over a period of 1995 to 2000, and it was eaten nearly 85 times in a year.
Second one.
On the other hand, it appears from the graph that the popularity of pizzas and hamburgers rose substantially.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. So, constant. Constant, that means unchanged, same. And notice that 1995 to, right? So you have a range of time for dynamic. And it was eaten nearly 85 times in that year. Contrast. On the other hand, or you can say in contrast, popularity of pizzas and hamburgers rose substantially, a lot. So, hamburgers green, pizzas blue, yes, seem to be very popular by the end of the period there. Okay. So rose here is not the flower, but past tense for the verb rise, R-I-S-E. Past tense of rise is rose. Okay, we have for comparatives and superlatives. Can I have a volunteer, please?
I'll do it.
Right, thank you.
Right. Comparatives and superlatives. Comparatives after 1985, hamburgers and pizzas were more popular than fish and chips. Superlatives, according to the graph in 1975, the fish and the chips were the most popular fast food among the teenagers of Australia.
Right, thank you. So comparatives is when you compare two things. Superlatives when you compare three and more. So here, hamburgers and pizzas as one group and fish and chips as a second group. Although these are two different types of food, but they are put into one group. More popular than, T-H-A-N, not T-H-E-N. More is for comparative. Now here, superlative, most, M-O-S-T. Superlatives usually come with the in front, the most. Right, proportions. Right, so looking at this, can I have a volunteer, please, to read out this one sentence for me?
Okay, madam.
All right, thank you. Yes.
By 2000, the numbers of times fish and chips were eaten by the teens was about 2/5 the numbers of times they ate hamburgers.
Right, thank you. So 2/5, that's a proportion. Half, twice, 1/3, 1/5. But when it's 2/5, you got to add the plural form there. So when you put it together, all right, oh, sorry, that was for the grammar part. Now you look at a body paragraph. Can I have a volunteer, please?
Should I do it?
Why not?
Right. Body paragraph 1. According to the graph, in 1975, fish and chips were the most popular fast food among the teenagers of Australia. Moreover, at the time, it was eaten almost 100 times per year. After that, in 1980, the popularity of fish and chips decreased consistently. Again, it increased slightly in 1985. Then, from 1985 to 2000, the demand for this fast food fell significantly, just under 40 times eaten per year. After 1985, hamburgers and pizzas were more popular than fish and chips.
Right, thank you. So as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned it before. Okay, in body paragraphs, you will need to put numbers, right? By numbers, I don't mean the year, but you have to put in numbers like 100 times per year, and then 40 times eaten per year, and so on, right? Let's see, almost 100 times. After that, in 1980, so the highlighted words, decreased consistently. That means it kept on decreasing. And then increased slightly, a little bit, fell significantly, fell a lot, dropped a lot, right? More popular than. Okay, another body paragraph, right? Can I have another person, please?
I will do it, madam.
All right, thank you.
On the other hand, it appears from the graph that the popularity of pizzas and hamburgers rose substantially. Nevertheless, the demand for pizza was constant over a period of 1995 to 2000, and it was eaten nearly 85 times in a year. However, the consumption rate of hamburgers exponentially increased from 1985 to 2000, and the number of eaten times per year was just above 100 times. By 2000, the number of times fish and chips were eaten by the teens was about 2/5. The number of times they ate hamburgers.
Right, thank you. So you can see here that using this phrase, on the other hand, shows a contrast with the first body paragraph. And then we are putting together all the sentences we looked in isolation just now. Rose substantially. And then constant, that means did not change. Over a period of 1995 to 2000, we have numbers here, eaten nearly, because not exactly, 85 times. Let's see, exponentially. Exponentially means a lot, increased a lot. Then you have from 85 to 2000, you have numbers here, 100 times. By 2000, this is a year, so then you have a proportion, 2/5. Does anyone have any questions about the two body paragraphs?
Excuse me, madam.
Yes.
What does it mean, 2/5?
2/5 means 2/5.
Miss, I have a question as well.
Yes.
When we're writing the two body paragraphs, let's say the first body paragraph, and I decide to choose different vocabulary, like the more simple vocabulary when I'm writing the essay, is it going to affect my marks?
What do you mean by simple vocabulary?
Instead of, for example, instead of saying, however, the consumption rate of hamburgers exponentially increased, what if I say, however, the consumption rate of hamburgers increased a lot?
You could use those words. That's not too simple, but it again depends on whether overall the vocabulary you use is very simple or not. If it's very simple, then it might not get a very high grade. If you can use high-level vocabulary correctly, that would be a good thing.
Okay, so it's better for me to use words like substantially, constant,
If
exponentially.
you know how to use them correctly. But some students sometimes memorize difficult words and they use them in the writing, but it doesn't sound correct. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just put there, but it doesn't belong in that place, in that sentence. So you need to know how to use those words.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Right, welcome. Any other questions? Right, I'm going to move on, but if you have questions, you can still ask me later. Right, here's the conclusion. Right, who would like to read this out for me?
Yes, I can try, madam.
All right, thank you.
All right, okay. To sum up, it can be clearly seen that Hamburg were the most popular fast food at the end of the Song period. In contrast, fish and chips moved from the first place to third place by the end of the Song period.
Right, thank you. So you have two sentences. Sentence one is up to here. So this is again a kind of overview. And in contrast, this is another overview. Right? You can give a minimum of one overview in your conclusion. So let's look at them side by side. Overview in the introduction, overview in the conclusion. I'm going to let you look at them and see if you have any questions that you want to ask me. I'm going to move on to the next slide, but if you need me to return to this or you have questions, you can ask me at the end of it. Right. So the next thing is, well, how will your writing be graded? Your writing will be graded on content. Content means the points that you give, vocabulary, the kind of words that you use, and also your grammar. Now, content, depending on the points that you use, make sure that it's analysis and not just stating what you see. By that, what do I mean? For example, if a student says, let's take an easier chart. All right. So let's say that a student says, in 1970, 1,000 women had fitness membership. In 1970, 2,000, wait, let me start again. In 1970, 1,000 women had fitness membership. In 1970, 2,000 men had fitness membership. In 1975, 2,000 women had fitness membership. 1975, 4,000 women had fitness membership. Those are just statements. They are not analysis. When you do analysis, you might say something like, the number of men who were members, who had fitness membership, men, was nearly double the number of women. That is analysis, right? So you don't just simply state what you see. You need to do some analysis. So you got to be careful of your writing. Right, where will we? Okay. So a bit of vocabulary, right? So the kind of words to use. Can I have a volunteer to read this information out, please?
Lina, madam.
All right, okay, Lina.
The amount of it used with uncountable items, and it takes singular verbs such as is or was. Example, the amount of oil produced in Brunei in 2004 was.
Right, thank you. So the amount of, you use with uncountable items such as oil, water, electricity, let's see, water, oil, electricity, sugar, salt, and things that you cannot count one by one. So you use the amount of. You don't say the number of oil unless it is barrels of oil. Then it is countable. Then you would say the number of barrels of oil. Okay, let's look at the number of. A volunteer, please.
Okay.
I thought I heard a voice. Okay, someone sounds very scared. Yes, please read for me.
The number of is for countable items and it takes singular words such as is or was. Example, the number of students in that school is.
Right, thank you. Now, let's see. So just now we had the amount of, you use singular verbs, but here it is, the number of, also you use singular verbs. Now this can be a bit confusing for some students because here look at the sentence. So they think the number of students is plural. So maybe here it should be are. But it is standard grammar when you use the number of, you need to use is or was, right? That is just standard grammar. The number of, you use is or was. Now, using percent or the percentage of, who would like to read this for me, please?
I'll do it, madam.
All right, thank you. I'm getting very spoiled asking for people. Okay.
Okay. It
Go
can
on.
be seen that 23% of the students. Number two, the percentage of students in Indian schools.
Right, thank you. So when you have a number, you use percent. Here you use the percentage of, then you can mention a number. The percentage of students in Indian schools is 23, and then you can have the percent symbol. Okay, any questions so far? Right, I'm going to move on.
So far, no, madam.
All right, good. All right, can I have someone to read this for me, please?
Me, madam.
All right, thank you.
Change noun and adjectives phrases into verbs and adverbs to create a range of expressions. Example, a slight increase to increase slightly. Also try different ways to say the same thing so you don't have to repeat yourself. Increase, go up, rise.
Right, thank you. So, noun, adjective, what does it mean? So, increase is a noun. Then you add information to the noun. A slight, you're adding information to the noun. So, adjective, noun. I repeat. Here, increase is a noun. Slight is adjective. So, a slight increase. Notice when it is adjective, noun, you use a in front. Right, now this one, notice that it's increase like here, but here it is a verb. So increase, verb. Slightly, this one ends with ly, that is an adverb. Because this is a verb here, you can change it according to the tense. Present tense, you can say increases. Past tense, you can say increased. Future tense, you can say will increase. Are there any questions?
No.
All right, good. So then also synonyms like increase, go up, rise. All right, can I have a volunteer, please? All right, thank you.
There was a gradual rise in the price of oil. There has been a sharp
A little bit of problem there with the audio, but never mind. Thank you. So here you can say that it is an adjective and noun. You use a adjective and then you use nouns. So you don't change anything when there are nouns. You don't add the letter S or you don't add D, you don't use ing. You leave it alone, right? So it's a noun here. Can I have a volunteer, please, for this?
Can I try, madam?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Adverb, verb, the price of property fell sharply. The percentage of home values dropped dramatically.
Right, thank you. So you have verb, adverb. Verb, adverb. So this one, the original verb would be fall, F-A-L-L. So this is past tense, simple past. This one is an adverb. Here you have ed, so that is past tense. Verb, adverb. Any questions on these two things?
No, madam.
All right, thank you. Let's move on. Right, so grammar tenses, it is recommended, but depends on the situation. You can use present tense in the body, in the introduction. In the body paragraphs, you would use a variety of tenses depending on the situation. Conclusion, you can use simple past, or if it is a projection chart, you can use simple future. Let's look at comparatives. Who would like to read this out for me, please?
Okay, madam.
Yes, please. Thank you.
British people spend just above $120,000 on TV sets. In comparison, this figure was much lower from Italy at $50,000. Fewer people bought car in 2011 compared to 2013.
Right, thank you. So this one comparatives, two groups. So this one is comparing between people from Britain and people from Italy. So much lower, ER ending here. And then when it is countable, because people is countable, here it is money, you use much, not many, M-A-N-Y, that is for countable. So people is countable, fewer, that means lower number. So fewer people. Right, look at this. If there are questions, you can ask me. Right, I'm going to move on. Wow, quite a lot of sentences here. Who would like to read for me, please?
I'll do it.
All right, thank you.
All right. Grammar, superlatives. The price of oil reached a peak amounting $20 in February and again touched the lowest point amounting only $10 in July. The highest number of books was sold in July, while the lowest was in December. The sales of Taylor Swift's songs dropped the least when the figures are compared to all three singers.
Right, thank you. So superlatives, 3 or more. Let's see. So reach the peak, that means highest amount. Then lowest is the lowest point. So our many points. So you can use the superlative. Let's see. Highest. So the highest number of books. Notice that the verb is singular. The lowest was. So highest and lowest also you use singular verbs. That's another thing to be aware of. Now here this singer, you're comparing 3 singers. So definitely you will have to use superlatives. What is this? Now the use of less and fewer. Right. Can someone read these for me, please? These sentences.
Can I try?
Yes, please.
Fewer mobile phones were bought in 2013 than 2014. Less oil was consumed in 2013 than in 2014.
Right, thank you. Okay, look at the sentence structure. Right, so if you look at it, less is for uncountable, you cannot count, like oil, water, electricity. Countable are things that you can count. So mobile phones, definitely you can count, so fewer. Oil, you cannot count 1 oil, 2 oil, so less. So prepositions can be particularly troublesome for students, right? So when you have a year like 2010, you need to use in, or even a month. like March, in December. So year and month, you use in. Specific date, like 20th March 2013, you use on. Time of day, at 2 p.m. or a number at a particular point, the figure stood at 10,000 or 10% or something like that, right? A particular point or for time. By 2000, that means like if there has been a change, maybe the chart started with 2000, 2005, I repeat a bit slower. So maybe the chart starts with the year 2000, 2005, 2010. So there's a period of time. So by 2010, something had happened, it had dropped, right? The information starts at 2000, but by 2000, the number of participants had dropped or had increased or something. This one is calculation by 200 people. So let's say, I'm going to speak a bit slowly because this is numbers. So let's say the year 2010, in the year 2005, sorry, in the year 2005, the number was 500. Maybe you, okay, why don't you write this down and try it, tell me. Right, so the year 2005, the number was 500. So if I say it had dropped by 200 people, what number is it in the year 2010?
300.
300, correct. Right? It had dropped by. So 500 minus 200, you get 300. Another thing, try also. Let's say the year 2005, the number was 500. If I say it had increased by 200 people, what's the number in the year 2010?
700.
700, correct. Any questions? Also confident. Okay, moving on. Right. So preposition still, the number had risen to, so like just now from 500 to 700, you can say the number had risen to 700. I repeat, let's say just now 2005 was 500, 2010, 700. So you can say the number had risen to 700. Off. Difference of 112 units between 2000 and 2005. Should I get you to do some math? Perhaps, right? So let's say, try this, okay, people, write this down. Let's say that in the year 2000, let me try it also. The year 2000, the number was 300 maybe people, okay? Try it and see. The year 2000, the number was 300 people. So if I say a difference of 112 units, let's say extra, a difference of 112 units, what is the number in the year 2005?
442.
Very good. 412. Is that correct? 412. Yes, 412. Now, synonyms you can use for years from 1996 to 1998. You can also use between 1996, and 1998. Same, right? So maybe first you use from and to, but you want to change your writing a little bit. So you can say in the next sentence, between and something. Any questions? Right, I'm going to move on. So transitions. So these are some of the words that you can use. See, so these are options, different options. You can take a picture of it if you like. Before I move to the next slide. Proportions are very useful when you're doing bar charts or pie charts. So exactly a quarter would be 25%. 1/3 is 33.33%. So this 32%, for example, would be nearly 1/3. Half would be 50%. So this is nearly half. Or this 51 is over a half. 3/4 would be 75%. So would be 73 is nearly 3/4. Right? 77 would be more than 3/4. Any questions? No? All right, I'm going to move on. All right. Now, do you need to include reasons or explain? So you say something like, oh, fewer people bought mobile phones because the economy was bad. No, you don't need to explain it, right? Or let's say that fewer people ate fast food because they realized it's bad for health. No, you don't have to give a reason. You just analyze the points that are given on the chart. Now, sometimes when students get their results, they may not be very happy because the result is not perhaps what they hoped for, right? So they think they wrote well, they memorized, they practiced, they tried their best. But then the result is not so good. What could have been some of the problems? Like I mentioned just now, maybe it was not analysis. The student just gave statements, not analysis. Maybe the sentences were short sentences. Sometimes students are afraid to write long sentences because they're afraid of making a lot of grammar mistakes. So they write short sentences. If you write very short sentences, that will not get the student a very high grade. Perhaps the analysis was wrong. The student kept saying increase, decrease, fluctuated, but actually that was a static chart, right? So I repeat, maybe the student say increased, decreased, fluctuated, but that was a static chart. You cannot say increase, decrease, fluctuated for a static chart. Irrelevant information. So the student tried to give reasons. Maybe people don't spend so much money because the area was flooded, or maybe because the economy was bad. So they written 150 words, but perhaps a lot of it was irrelevant information. Does anyone have anything to ask about this?
No, Miss.
No, I'm going to move on. Okay, I'll give you a moment to look at this before I explain. Can I have someone to read this out, please?
Okay, madam.
Thank you.
Do not describe all small details, as this makes your writing sounds mechanical. Add transitions to help your essay to help with its cohesion and coherence. In other words, its flow. Some useful expressions, in addition, furthermore, however, although.
Thank you. So don't describe every small detail. Pick and choose. Sometimes students worry that they are not choosing the correct points or good points. But as long as you choose high, low, and then like a drop or a rise for dynamic charts, you should be all right. Don't worry so much about what points to include. You don't have to include everything. Pick some points, use the appropriate grammatical structures to describe them, and that should be fine. And to make your writing smooth, you can use transitions, right? For example, firstly, or the interestingly, or things like that. And I've given some examples here. You can use transitions like in addition, furthermore, however, although, or even to show same like similarly or likewise. I remember seeing lists of these words in your reading textbook in the writing pages. So have a look in your reading textbook wherever there are writing pages, and there is a lot of useful information available there. Let's see. What else? I'll give you a moment to look at this. Be careful of your spelling. Be very careful. For Malaysian students, you might be used to some words, the Bahasa Melayu kind of spelling, but you remember that this is in English. Be careful of the spelling. Some students are more familiar with French words, so again, be careful of the spelling in English. Punctuation, full stop, comma, semicolon. Semicolon is the dot and the comma in longer sentences. So be careful of spelling and punctuation. And as I mentioned before, you need to paraphrase the question. It would be really good if you can paraphrase the question and not just copy and paste what you see. Here are some options: table, graph, chart. And then you can use words like shows, illustrates. What else? Okay, let's see. Now this one, charts, plural, would be if you're given a diagram with 2 pie charts. So you would say the pie charts show. If you have 2 pie charts, so you need to be careful about that. Are there any questions? I'm going to move on. Oh, okay. It looks like we come to the end of it. All right, people. So we've come to the end of these points for doing your task 1 writing for the EPT, some tips. Are there any overall questions?
Yep, madam. May we have this reviewer?
Reviewer, what do you mean?
This our lesson today, may we have?
It is being recorded on YouTube. The recording will be available. Will it be the IIUM CELPAD? What's the link actually?
Probably it will be shared in our website, CELPAD website.
Okay,
the slides.
The CELPAD website. I'm sure that you can ask your lecturer for the link later on. It's still being recorded right now, so the link is not available yet.
Thanks, madam.
All right. Any other questions? Right. I'm going to assume there are no more questions. So I'm going to hand it back to Madam Amelie. And also, I would like to thank Madam Raja Munira again for really helping CELPAD ELD by enabling us to do this workshop. Madam Amelie, turning it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Nesamalar, for the very informative sharing session. Yeah, I hope you guys benefit from all the points. Yeah, was very clear, and I think if you have, you want to know more details of your own practices for the task, maybe you should refer to your own class teacher. Yeah, all right. I have shared a link for evaluation. So before you leave, you probably would like to record your remarks or any information that you want us to have more of this kind of sharing session. Please fill in the form and then submit. Right. So for those of you who have missed this live session on Zoom, you can always watch on YouTube, and it's all recorded there, and probably you don't have any problem watching YouTube because it's free. Right. Okay. So any other question that you would like to ask or put forward before we leave this workshop or sharing session?
No, madam.
Okay, all right. I would like to thank all of you for attending. We will announce for other workshop later, maybe in the following week or just before your EPT examination. All right. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Salam.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
madam.
madam.
Thank you,
Waalaikumsalam.
madam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you,
You're
madam.
most welcome.
The recording has stopped.
Thank you, madam.